Welcome, low ego action heroes. I still haven't been able to get that music to fade out properly. This is Debbie Levitt from Delta CX, a full service CX and UX agency, and welcome to Tuesday's office hours, which is usually Ask Me Anything. But today we have super special guests, which means we'll be doing the 12-inch extended dance remix version of this and going for 90 minutes. And I see Dr. Nick is making the cool 80s Billy Idol face at that. So let's bring in our guests right now while I open up the chat and some of the windows and have our guests introduce themselves as I get all the windows ready. Darren, who the heck are you and why do we want to know?
Hi, everybody. My name is Darren Hood. I am an experienced designer with over 20 years of experience, and that is comprised of UX, CX, and LX, learning experience. I am a professor at Kent State University, where I teach in the Masters of UX Design program there. I teach at Lawrence Tech University, and I am on the verge of becoming a professor at Michigan State as well, working in the Masters of CX program there. You can find me in my podcast. You can find me on Medium now, all over the place.
Man is everywhere. He is holy. Dr. Nick, tell us about you and your everlasting greatness.
That's a tough gag to follow. I'm Nick. I've been around. I'm an HCI guy. I'm an HCI guy doing UX. I'm also a psychologist doing UX. So I kind of bring a merge of IT world and computer science with psychology and HCI in kicking and screaming into the UX world. I've been doing it practically for 10 years across everything, the public sector, the private sector, agencies. I mentor people. Can't take any more people on. Please don't come and get me. And I don't have enough hours in the day. But other than that, I'm currently a contractor and looking for work. So if you've got a job for me, give me a shout.
Would you please hire this man, people, and give him a living home? And just a reminder that since yesterday was our 100th podcast, I am still eating the cake that I bought yesterday. So I will be covered in cake today as well. I hope you will be also. No extra charge. I hope Darren doesn't say anything too funny so that I won't need to be resuscitated. Now, we got a few questions ahead of time, so I'm going to start with those. But let's remind everybody. Let's put up my little questions thing. Hold on. Where's my questions thing? 1. No, wrong place. 2. Right place. All right, there you go. Let's remind everybody of how to ask questions. And in fact, let me do better than that. I'll put it up in the top bit. Sorry, I did not prepare. I was so happy to see Darren and Nick, and we're chatting, and I'm like, oh my God, it's a show. Hold on, y'all. So let's see. deltacx.link/ask is the way to ask a question anonymously, or I am also watching the LinkedIn chat, the YouTube chat, and the Twitch chat. I want to remind everybody, please follow us on Twitch. Twitch is significantly better than YouTube and LinkedIn. The delay is really short, and Twitch has a lot of fun features that I'm soon going to be taking advantage of. If you are on Twitch, type in !giveaway, and
Nice.
You can enter to win a book that I will sign and send to you myself. So and Shannon on Twitch says, nice stormtrooper helmet.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
So there you go. And I see people are also having fun in Twitch with my 8-ball. If you do !8-ball and ask it a question, I have programmed in some things that some advice it'll give you, like just use design thinking. So let me start with, it always works. Let me start with some questions we got ahead of time that I'm going to throw out to the gang. And remember, everybody, ask your questions. Someone wrote, hi, Debbie. How can I uncover the real reason or need behind a stakeholder's design request? Sometimes there is a really good business case, but they often express it as a design request with their solution already. Who wants to jump on that one? Hi, Ikening.
I can, whenever you want.
Yeah, I'll jump in. It's when we launch into a project, no matter what you call the design process, it always starts out with discovery, whether you call it requirements gathering or whatever it might be. You're going to do some research because you need to design is basically about solving problems. So we need to really accurately identify what the problem is. And there are times that somebody will try to get you to do something. And if we do our work the right way, we may find out, you know what, this doesn't even require a full blown project. How about we just change this one thing over here and look and see what happens with that? The mere fact that somebody brings us something does not really mean that it's valid. I mean, I've worked at creative agencies where, okay, it's time to redesign the site. Okay, that's going to happen. So no matter what anybody says, if we're on that certain cycle, we were on like 1.5 year cycles to start working or start deploying the next generation of a website. But if somebody comes up with something and they're just throwing it out there, we don't know what's behind that. So part of the reason that we always refer to ourselves as not being order takers, this is part of that. Let's make sure that this is legit. The last thing you want is to get engaged with projects that aren't projects. Because if you make a habit of that, that's the beginning of the end, and you're going to start sending a subliminal message to the organization that you guys aren't worth anything.
Yeah, that we take orders. Hey, just wireframe me something and we'll build it. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Nick, something to add?
And when it doesn't work, they will blame you. So
yes, right. Hold them accountable. Nick?
Designers, traditional, visual designers. I learned a term from them. They said, don't, I'm not a screwdriver is what they say. I'm not a tool in the same way you're saying, just, you know what I mean? Just turn the screw with me type thing. I couldn't disagree with anything Darren said. He's obviously spot on. Two things I just want to just vary. One, not vary, reframe. Sometimes you'll hear this as the word brief. Brief is a big word in many spheres of life. I can be quite, I wouldn't say, I like to get written brief, because a written brief allows me to ask questions and allows them the time to think about that, which you get to challenge them on the problem, which is all the stuff that Darren has just said. The other thing you'll hear, the other word you'll hear is solutionizing, which isn't a word, but it's a word. Is that exactly jumping to solutions? So it's like Darren said, give me problems, not solutions. If you can get a 3 or 4 questions on that very brief, so that they can fill it in, you can start to understand what they're trying to achieve. And that is half the battle. And then everything else is exactly as Darren says.
I love what he said, too. I'm going to jump in while Debbie's still chewing. While Debbie's still chewing, I have something else to add there. Let her swallow her cake. But when we have our process in place, especially for the beginning of projects, that can help safeguard you. In general, I thought about when Dr. Nick said that, I worked at a place before we had a process where people had to answer questions about the project they're proposing. And if you structure questions the right way, that can safeguard you from somebody slipping in a project, a faux project on the team. It will definitely help protect you. That's huge.
And of course, we have a fantastic comment from Larry Marine. I'm going to be impolite and talk with my mouth full of cake. And Larry says, for those of you listening in the audio version, you're missing my mouthful of cake. Larry says, yes, people have difficulty defining a problem and are more comfortable describing the problem in terms of a solution. Try asking why they think that's a solution. Try to get to the root cause. Super agree.
Yes.
Maybe you can take all of this one step further. Many business people would quite rightly expect a KPI on this as well. So whatever you're going to achieve needs to be measurable in terms that are appropriate to that culture or department, team, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right. How are you?
That was always one of the.
What's the success criteria? How are we measuring this?
Yep.
Damn right. And that's the way it should be.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. Let's jump to the next question. I really liked this question. It came in earlier today. It says, I work on a very cluttered toolbar UI that leads users to cognitive load. But after user interviews, I saw that users of this app are very much used to the cluttered toolbar. Would simplifying this interface really be the right approach? So here's the question, and Larry too in the peanut gallery or the audience there. Hey, Larry in the cheap seats, would it, I apologize for saying peanut gallery. I heard that you're not supposed to say that anymore, so I apologize. Does it make sense to try to simplify something when people are used to it and we keep hearing people hate change? Nick?
Do you know what? I think I've been thinking about this a lot in the milliseconds. It comes down to the context and the system itself. If you're talking about a mission critical system and you do that, you damn well better have a 2-track or even a triple track phase over from old to new. I think that's a case by case thing. I mean, typically, yes, people hate change, and you change anything and they're going to, it's about the cost or the impact of that change. I laughed at the beginning because when you hear this and you hear this story, it's a bit like kind of Stockholm syndrome. It's like you get used to your kidnappers, or do you know what I mean? It's you're used to abuse that it's kind of it's normal, right? And it's like, no, you shouldn't be treated like that. Shouldn't be the experience that you're having. If nothing else, it's more efficient to do it other ways. But there is an efficiency drop whilst you're retraining. So that's why I said about context and impact. But every system, you can't have legacy systems knocking around because they always cause grief for IT. So at some point, that change has got to happen. It's inevitable. You need to plan for it. Bottom line.
Yeah, and I'd say task analysis, see where things are working and not working for people and see what you can do about it. Darren, how would you improve that, or how would you address that?
Absolutely. I love it. I mean, piggybacking on what Dr. Nick said, if we know that we have some null hypotheses here, there are some things that we know. People like the system, even though it's clumsy, people are comfortable with it. It's working for us. That's where the beauty of UX comes into play, because we always are the ones that are going the extra mile. And if we're doing UX the right way, even though everybody's comfortable and nothing appears to be broken, the word that jumped out that Dr. Nick said was efficiency. And I thought about what he said earlier about KPIs. If we can shorten time to task, if we can prove that we're making things more efficiently, if we can show that changing the system, even though everybody's comfortable, will improve our bottom line, have positive impact on our brand experience, will help people to feel better about engaging with us and make our customers more efficient, we have all the reasons in the world to go back to the stakeholders in their language and show if we do X, Y, and Z, even though everybody's happy, we can make it even better. We're always about continuous improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and we have to identify those things. And so, yes, and Larry said small incremental changes, I'll read this, are harder to accept than the big change. One small change allows users to fall back on their habituated way of doing things. This actually increases cognitive load. And that's the other piece too. That a big change is difficult at first, but if it truly does improve performance, the users will adapt to it quickly. So when we're talking about making those incremental changes and bringing that value, not only do we make things better for the users, we make things better for the business. We help drive our UX maturity level because we're demonstrating our value and getting people to buy in, because from organization to organization, you're going to have a different reaction to what we're talking about here. So if we do that and show that value, huge plus.
Great, thank you. And thanks to Larry. Larry also says if it looks the same, users expect it to act the same. And if it acts the same, they expect it to look the same. And I always say, we think people hate change, but they usually don't hate change that they like. If we can give them something that is truly an improvement of their task or their process, they might grumble at first thinking they have to learn something new, but then they're going to like it or prefer it. Nick, you had something to add, and then we'll move on?
Yeah. I get a little uncomfortable when we talk in such generalizations like this. Well, I get very uncomfortable because there is no playbook. The whole point is about the introduction and management of change and behavioral change, along with the tools and the technology to support it. People will accept the change. The way to do this is to find out first. Don't say people will like this or not like this. Is to take a test audience, take a sample of newbies and experts of users of this system, and see how they respond to your iterations and development. I mean, this is agile. This is the way we build product in the new world. I mean, it shouldn't be a big waterfall decision like, do we go X or Y? It shouldn't be like that anymore.
Thanks. And
glad
just
you-
remind,
glad
we
you
did
mentioned
get
that.
a question in from Shrivas, and I've put you on the list. You have some questions ahead of you. Remember, everybody, you can put your questions into the YouTube chat, the LinkedIn chat, the Twitch chat, or ask anonymously up at the top of the screen, deltacx.link/ask. That will send it to me anonymously, or you can put your name on it as the last person just did. And Destiny, I see your question, but I'm going to put it on the end after Shrivas's question. So just know we will get to you. Okay, the third question that came in today ahead of time said, "Hi Debbie, you are the best. Will you marry me?" Now, of course, I checked with my boyfriend if he sent that in, and he sat up quite straight in his chair and said, "What?" And so to answer that very quickly, I am not available for marriage, and also as an anonymous question, I've got to say that's tough for me to answer. I don't know who you are, but it doesn't matter who you are. I found the perfect man, and he's sitting right over there. Hey, perfect man. He's got his headphones on. He's pretending he can't hear me.
Dude,
do you
Darren,
want
I'm
to
looking at you, man.
make a guest appearance? You can drop by without cake. You can just wave to the good people so they know that I have an actual three-dimensional boyfriend who Dr. Nick's wife thinks looks like Dr. Nick, but isn't Dr. Nick. Dr. Nick lives in a different country. And anyway, my boyfriend will drop by at some point. Ekening, I see your question. I'll put it after Destiny's question. And oh no, here he goes. Oh, he's finally doing it. You're gonna do it? Okay, well, anyway, Ekening, I see your question. I'll put it after Destiny's question. And we'll keep working on these questions. Hold on. It's working. Yeah, it's working. Somebody
He does look like
grabbed
Nick.
Yeah, somebody grabbed my
1970s
green
chroma key.
sweatshirt. Yeah, somebody grabbed
Yeah.
my green sweatshirt in front of my green screen and decided he's got the Harry Potter invisibility cloak.
That's like a 70s Disney movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's that kind of special.
That was, yes, exactly. That's very good. Shannon says, "I was excited to be a Twitch VIP. Now I want to know who this person who proposed is." Yes, I nominated a bunch of you VIPs. Larry says, "Yes, but we have never seen the perfect boyfriend and Dr. Nick in the same room at the same time." And Emmy, and Emmy says, "I can only imagine the confusion in the audio-only listeners later." Yes, so for audio-only people, my boyfriend showed up with my green sweatshirt in front of my green screen and appeared to be a floating head. All right, so back to actual questions. So no, I'm not marrying you, whoever you are. I'm marrying that guy who has the floaty head. So this question's actually from me to Dr. Nick. A recent guest on my show said that Dr. Nick is for the democratization of research. I wanted to ask Dr. Nick, what is your definition of democratization, and are you for the democratization of UX research or tasks?
Okay, let me be clear on this because I think I'm being misquoted a few places. UX, user research. I don't call it UX research. User research, because it's about users, humans, people.
Human research.
User research. User research is a skill. It's a really difficult skill. It's a very big experiential skill. The democratization of research, I mean, is that you share the insight and the user-generated insight everywhere. When I say, it's not for a certain department or like an analytics report. It's literally for everybody in the organization, up and down, all around. I'm not a big favor of anybody having a go at this thing called research, because I can do research on Google and blah, because research with a small r and a big R are different things. And professional research or doing commercial grade research, or when it matters, is important stuff. And I don't believe that anybody can just have a go at research without the traditional training of mentorship and experience. I think we all agree on that. That's hard to disagree with. And I think that's just the way of the world. We definitely need more researchers, and we need more mentorship, and we need all the great stuff that you're doing, Debbie, through and Darren's doing through CX and everything else. But yeah, that's the problem. That's what's happened in the past 10 years. And I can see it happening now in the past 5 years. There weren't enough researchers around, and you can't get it fast. You can't buy it. Everyone's finding out the hard way with boot camps and everything else. So, and now that's why we're being called elitist, because it's a difficult thing to acquire. But yes, the insight and the user needs and the behavior of our users, of our customers, should be ubiquitous.
Yes, share it with everybody, but that doesn't mean we want unqualified or unskilled people doing the research with us, which is what I find they typically mean when they say democratization. I find they typically don't mean, please share the results with us, or please share the videos with us, or please let us observe a session. They usually mean, we're going to plan it with you, we're going to recruit with you, we're going to execute it, we're going to interpret it with you. That's what I tend to see as when people say democratize, and that's why I'm against that. But I'm certainly for what you said, which is socializing it, sharing it, inviting people to observe, and making them more a part of the outcomes and insights.
I mean, the analysis is us. The discussion at the end of it is definitely a democratic everybody type thing. These are the insights. Let's discuss what they actually mean for us. Or are they hypotheses to generate more hypotheses? Give me more hypotheses. It's that is a very democratic, in pan organization thing. And I think the more times you get more of that research into people's hands, the more transformation happens. It's quite that simple.
Darren, anything to add, even though that was directed at Nick because someone said it was him?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is this. I rant about this from time to time. It saddens me a lot of times that somebody will make a statement. Instead of finding out what the person meant, they jump on their horse and they start running around and say the sky is falling. It's something in social media spaces. In order to communicate effectively, we have to understand somebody first before we can respond or react, not effectually. Too many times people they hear something and then they digest it and they define it in their own world, and then they run off. Hear what he was saying about democratization. Don't just run off. And it happens so often, and we're already in a big enough fight as it is. We don't need to engage in fighting with one another. And I use the word fighting loosely when I say that. Because we just simply don't bother to find out what somebody said. What did the man say? What did the woman say? Don't run around acting like you're some big hero or like you uncovered something when what you're talking about is nothing. It's one of the things that people need to be better at. That's where EQ comes into play a lot more. The better we are with our EQ, the better we will be, the more efficiently we'll communicate, and the more efficiently we'll interact with one another, and then we can make more progress as a whole for ourselves and for the discipline.
And I just wanted to add, if your team needs researchers, hire them. Stop giving work to random people who are already busy with their own work. Don't take people away from their work to have them play pin the tail on the UX or user research. I wanted to mention that. All right, we've got a list of questions. I'm going to jump on the next one, but first, let us all celebrate with Aftab, who I'm going to say, well, hooray. And also let's put up what Aftab said, which was, a few months ago, I came into office hours to ask for, come back here, to ask for advice for finding a job after a COVID-related layoff. I bring this up because 2 weeks ago, I landed a role. Thank you so much. You're the best. So thanks, Aftab. Good to hear that, unfortunately, you were laid off, but hopefully you found something even better. So congratulations and welcome back to the show. Okay, the next one was an anonymous question. I think they're coming in, right? Okay, yeah, I see a few more anonymous questions coming in, so I'm adding you to the list, but the list is getting long. This one says, hey, Darren and Debbie, I love it when you guys do videos together. I did my, or is this, maybe this wasn't anonymous. Is this in the room? I love it when you guys do videos together. I did my master's in automotive technology, but a full UX specialization, and found my calling in UX research through this journey. I'm looking to begin my career in UXR. As a newcomer, what would be your advice to me to break into the UXR journey? So accidentally related to our last question. How do you break in to user and UX research? Darren first.
The first, now I'm going to play technology or a terminology game here first. We're going to level set. I had a recent post on LinkedIn where I was trying to get people, please stop saying break in. We'll laugh about it, but you'll get my point. You don't have to break in if you have the key. So, which leads us back to the question, unless you locked your keys in the house, or you got locked out of the house, but you get my drift. So it's all about, it's the same. And I recently talked about something called the UX cycle of excellence, where it really talks about finding out what that discipline is about initially, making sure that you're defining it properly, get educated about it, identify your knowledge gaps, and you just continue to just go through this cycle. You continue to do it. So you continue to learn, you know where you stand now, evaluate where you are now, what type of research, because research is a huge animal. So when you say research, it's not like this one size fits all. Are we talking ethnography? Are you talking about possibly just going to a company that just engages in a lot of remote usability studies? I mean, what type of research is it going to be? So look at the jobs you're posting for, try to identify how their UX research team operates, identify where you align. Where are you knowledge-wise, experience-wise? Where are the gaps? And be ready to speak to those, because it's about making sure that you're as qualified as you can possibly be, seeing where you are now, evaluating yourself where you are now, recognizing what you need to do, and continuing to go forward. And that cycle will never end. So whether it's the first UXR job that you get or the next one 5 years down the road, the process remains the same.
Nick, anything to add to that?
It depends how junior you are. If you're not in user research at all, and you're stone cold, if you pardon the expression, get some kind of science literacy about you. If you can understand a bit of psychology, just get your head in that game, because research is inherently scientific, or we're not doing it in an arts-based way, that's for sure. So getting science literate and getting that gives you a lovely framework to then come in and do the mentoring and the experiential learning. Take any job to begin with, and then try to get a job in an agency, someone with a lab, someone you can get access to that stuff. Unfortunately, there's some risks to be taken. You'll have to take jobs and not be certain of research work, and that can be a massive problem. So keep an eye out for that. I mean, there's too many times in my and other people's careers where you've spent 3 or 6 months sitting around without hitting a lab or the field. And that's a massive problem for a user researcher or a UX consultant, depending upon which role you're playing. But good luck with it.
Thanks. And we have 8 questions on the list. Just know if you are asking questions, I am getting them on the list. I'm sorry, 9. But the list is growing fast. I'm doing the best I can as a one-woman show with 2 lovely guests. So let's see. Our next question is, when KPIs drop suddenly, stakeholders panic. How do we manage bad ideas when the chips are down? In my experience, I see us start to fixate on small things like the visual design. Who wants to jump on that one first? How do we deal with stakeholder panic and they say, just touch up the pretty?
I've got those slides that I did at conference, the stakeholder panic ones with the stakeholder freaking out. Roll back to the previous version, because they had no idea what they were doing, and it's completely unstructured guesswork, basically. Without being too rude, but I'm going to be a little bit straight here. Sometimes ego gets way in the way. It gets in the face of evidence. Suddenly evidence comes around and challenges your ego, and you're like, oh no, I actually didn't know what I was doing, and panic absolutely strikes. The way to avoid this is structured inquiry, is have a hypothesis, try it out, know the factors, the variables that you're changing so that you can repeat that. It's a bit like baking a cake. If you just do it by eye, you're never going to get the same cake out at the end. Whereas if you measure all the ingredients, you can replicate that cake time and time again. Same is sort of true with e-commerce or KPIs or whatever it is you're measuring. If you knew what you changed and it went bad, then you can change it back again, fix things and try another one, and keep keep being agile about your inquiry. The problems happen is when you change 3 or 4 different things, which is what really common, or you'll put up a new web page, and it all goes to hell and you've got no idea why. So you have to revert to the last known good. And that's an awful situation to be in. So be structured and know what you're changing so that when good or bad happens, you learn from it. That's the important part.
Darren.
Yeah, for me, two things come to mind. No, I was just waiting. I was waiting. I don't know if Debbie was going to say anything or not, but the first thing that comes to mind is being a well-structured UX operation is always proactive. So if you're always proactive, and because you're dependent upon data that giving you insights, I would think that I've never been in a situation where something like that came up and it was a surprise. So if you're benchmarking operation, if you're constantly performing heuristic analyses on where your designs are currently, and you already have on your radar things that you can do to improve, when you find out that something is failing, I've seen where it's failing because they did not listen to the UX team and went and did something on their own, ingenious design and hippo influence ruled. There's something there that was done and was ignored. Or if you're being proactive and you're aware of what's going on, well, we're having a problem here, here, and here. Well, we have data already on these things, and we've been looking at session cam recordings on our own. We don't wait. When you're a good sound UX operation, you're not waiting on stakeholders to tell you what to do. You're planning and doing things all the time. I love session cam. I'm a big session cam person. You've got the files there and you're sitting there, no projects, but you're doing some of this benchmarking work and you're watching people and you know that there's a problem because you've been looking at it. I'm glad you brought that up. We've been doing some research that says X, Y, and Z, and we can address this for you right away because we've got the data that proves that if we make the changes to these 3 pieces, we'll stop having abandonment in our shopping carts, or people will start finding suggestive search that is actually helpful, and we can immediately impact these KPIs. I think it was Forrester that said that when you really engage from a UX perspective, that you can impact your KPIs in a positive way. The number was like really high, like 450%. So proactive UX operation is not common. A lot of people don't do it. I'm a big supporter of that. And when you come in there, I mean, we're paid. Hey, we are paid to, I made a mention of one of my favorite movies of all time called Equilibrium. And it's about these people who are the emotion police. And they have a line that I constantly refer to in that movie. And the line is, it's our job to know what you're thinking. And I always say that that's what proper UX operation is going to do. We need to be ahead of the game. When they walk in and tell us something, we need to have some inkling about it. We need to be able, we're always doing the project, but we're also managing our maturity. And if we're just a bunch of responders, man, who in the world, that's why people think that anybody can do our jobs, because we're not ahead of the game. Get ahead of the game. Learn how to get ahead of the game. Love the discipline. It'll love you back. And you'll be able to be a benefit to everybody. So proactive, that's the big thing. Well, I worked at one company. All of the applications were developed in-house. And I was launching a project to benchmark, to conduct a heuristic analysis on all of the applications that were designed inside. So we were going to know about everything. If there was a problem, we were going to know about it. We were not waiting for the CEO and the CTO and all these other people to acknowledge stuff. We were going to have a repository. We were going to force them to increase our team size by 10 to 20 because of all the work that we found. And when they kept coming in and telling us about things, and we already have the answers, somebody eventually is going to see how valuable we are, and they're going to help us to start moving worlds. That's the power that a UX team yields. As if they really want to do the work, or you just want to rejoice in your little paycheck. What's it going to be?
Yep. Wow.
Do you know what? We've all had this experience of a head of department running around with that morning web analytics report, right? Like, oh no, the world's on fire, right? Everyone happens, and it happens really regularly. This is where user research and true UX is so critically important, because stuff does happen. The world changes. There's a lot of variables in this world. And the answer is to say, look, I don't know. Let's find out. When you drive, I call it flying on instruments only. Imagine you're flying an aeroplane. You look out the window for some of it, and some of it you're flying on the instruments. You're actually not looking out the window. If you spend all your time looking at the dials, at the web analytics, and actually looking out the window, looking at your users' behavior directly, you have no idea what's actually going on. No idea.
Yep.
And in most cases, when that report has come out, it's because if the problem is encapsulated in that web analytics report, you might capture it and not understand it, but at least you're aware of it. And that will happen usually within a 24-hour cycle, which is way too late, right? I'll come back to that in a moment.
Yep.
But it's way too late. Okay, no, I'll come to that. Listen, in IT, anything else? Can you imagine it goes down and you find out the next 3 months later what happened? That's the biggest problem in digital. We find out about way too many of these problems months or days later, and the world has exploded. I come from a world of IT and telecoms. When something's down, everything flashes red, there are alerts sent out, and people are woken up on duty with pages, etc., and we fix the problem. Can you imagine the cash registers stopping working at your local supermarket or what have you? That's exactly what happens. Things break technically, or interactions happen that are really bad, and they just allowed to perpetuate and fester and go onto social media and all of the other stuff. Sorry, Darren, You set me off on that one. You're so on the money with this.
No, it's good stuff.
All right. I got a million. I'm not even going to join that one. We have a million questions queued up. Thanks to everybody for their patience. The next one says, I want to hear your perspective on change management of the users and the stakeholders. We might have to get into the lightning round with less than an hour left. We have almost a whole hour left. Lightning round. Change management of users and stakeholders. And Darren.
Oh my goodness. I love change management, and it's not usually on the radar of UX people. And I've had the privilege of being involved with change management well before I started with UX, and still do it to this day. And to execute proper change management, you need to have sound understanding of who those users and stakeholders are. If you don't already have the data, or even if you do already have the data, you might need to go out and supplement that data on both. I'm a big proponent. I don't know if I've ever talked about this on another of our Three Amigos episodes, was that not only did I have personas, this two two-tiered. I had personas not only of our users, but I had personas of stakeholders. I was responsible when I was at Bosch in particular, and I was a manager for Bosch. I was responsible for managing the UX maturity level of the operation in the automotive aftermarket in the United States. But I also had maturity levels for stakeholders for each project, for each individual. I assigned a maturity level to everybody. Now, what does this have to do with change management? If you're going to execute change, you not only need to understand what you're doing with regard to the actual solution, but you need to understand how it's going to impact everybody from a potential standpoint. How might somebody react to something? Where do they stand now? Where is their comfort zone? And how can we best, sort of makes me think about something said earlier, how can we best roll this out in a way? It's all about efficiency. I always think about how efficiency is tied to usability. If it's not efficient, then your usability you've got issues from a usability standpoint. So we want to take all that data, meld it together, and come up with solutions that are going to help, where we're going to roll this thing out the right way. I want to help the company transition like 800 employees onto Lotus Notes. Some years ago, I created all of the resource materials. I conducted all of the courses. I did everything, but I had to have an understanding of the user base and of the stakeholder so that everybody could be confident, but also be comfortable. And those things are both part of change management. So knowing everybody is key. You don't just roll things out blindly. You need to understand what the potential pitfalls are. You need to make sure that you're addressing the potential pitfalls, that you're answering. Again, it's my job to know what you're thinking. I need to know how you're going to react. Any detrimental behaviors or attitudes, I need to head them off at the pass. I need to make sure that I'm building something into the solution that's going to address all these detracting elements and all of these weird thought patterns. The naysayer in the group, I need to solve the issue with regard to the naysayer. I need to head them off at the pass. All of this is, you can't just roll out a good solution. It has to be perceived to be good. And so, can you manage perceptions and functionality? That's what we do.
And before I flip over to Nick,
management.
I just realized the next question is a cousin of this question. So Nick, in addition to perspective on change management, someone asked, who is responsible for socializing a product or system overhaul if there is no change management officer?
Ooh.
Nick, you want to jump on any of this?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if I'm just going to tell it like it is and just how I feel and what I think.
That's why you're here.
I think this whole change thing is critically important, right? I believe in change by default. I change every day. I'm dynamic. You know what I mean? In that, like, I'm a changing person, right? So, like, having change officers and change not happening because you haven't got change officers, putting bureaucracy and stuff around something that is. I know there are people making a lot of money out of change and transformation, but change and transformation doesn't cost a penny, and if you get it right, it can happen overnight. I mean, it's being over-engineered in many cases, and I don't want to underplay it if you don't overplay that, but it's about motivations, it's about context, it's about needs. I mean, people can change. Transformation is the biggest irony in our industry because everyone's selling it, but no one's actually, everyone's buying it, but no one's actually changing. We've seen change management agencies all over the place for the past 5 years. I'm not seeing palpable change. Sorry, I'm just not. That's just why I'm calling it like I see it. I want to see the change, and I want to try to push the change forward.
Where are all these amazing innovations we keep hearing that companies are coming up with?
So look, let me get back to the kind of, there's something I was laughing at that Larry said on the screen down there about getting massive conversion rates. Thanks to the UX UI and this lack of user centricity, funnels that were previously really optimized and I couldn't make any money for them are now ruined. So it's all open play again. All these amazing funnels have been trashed across all these brands with this trashy UX UI stuff that looks great and is awful. I mean, I should really be collecting some experiences that I have because it happens now every day, multiple times. Should screenshot, video it, show you exactly why. I can make you a 0 easily. I can transform just by fixing this stuff. I've started tweeting companies to say, guys, the little UX here, I can make you a lot of money. No one gets back to me, and I'm just sorry. No one wants to change.
They don't.
I agree. I'm going to jump into the next question because we have a giant list of questions. Tips to people asking questions. Do not send me questions on multiple platforms. I promise I've seen your question and I've put it on the list, and sending it in multiple times just tells me you think I'm an idiot and I ignored you. I'm not an idiot. Your question is on the list. It's after this one. So please stop that. It's hard enough for me to juggle this. I have questions coming in through 5 different places, so just cut me some slack here, kids. Okay, this question came from Twitch, which is the greatest place to follow us, deltacx.com. And this says, I have a job interview coming up and I'm a bit nervous. I've heard advice like act drunk to behave less inhibited. Any other tips? Tip 1, do not act drunk. Nick, you want to give some job interview advice and then we'll go to Darren?
I'm just going to give you kind of dad type advice, right? I mean, I'm not a careers counselor, but I mean, act drunk is what they're trying to say is relax, right? Whatever it takes for you to relax. And the classic speaker one is imagine the audience naked, or if that takes the sting out of the situation, you know what I mean? Takes the seriousness out of it. But actually, if you're new to interviewing, your fear and your anxiety is around this new thing and this leaping out into the unexpected, analysis of you, basically. Practice it with lots of different people. Go to interviews, even for jobs that you don't really want to do, just to get the interview practice. A lot of what we talk about is experiential, and I can't tell you what to do to give you that confidence. But once you've jumped out that window 100 times, the 101st time is a no-brainer, and the same is exactly true with interviewing.
Just Darren. A quick comment from Shannon. These videos are therapy sessions. You all should charge, but please don't. Okay. Darren, tips for being less nervous for an interview.
Yes. Number one, being nervous is normal. So stop trying to stop being human. Number one. Yeah. Number two, you're going to be nervous. But it's going to die down. Once you get immersed in that interview, you're going to forget about being nervous. So give yourself some time and just forget about it. Just accept it. And so what you have to do is make sure that be yourself. But even before that, prepare. A lot of people go to interviews. They don't research the company. I think I talked before in another one of our episodes that we did together about taking a job posting, pasting it into like Word, and then going through a process, go step bullet by bullet through that process and evaluate how well you align with that position. And then, and you don't have to admit that you're nervous necessarily, because you don't want that to take up part of the time of your interaction. From a cognitive perspective, they're going to see it. They're going to accept it. They know you're nervous, so you don't even have to discuss that. But be yourself, prepare for the interview, go in there and sell yourself. And don't forget, number 3, you're interviewing them too. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how many people forget that they're also interviewing the hiring company. You're interviewing the hiring manager. I want to know if you're a jerk. But you can't ask them that. So you can come up with questions to ask about the UX maturity level. You can ask how old the team is. You can ask how many people are on the team. You can ask if this is a new position.
Do research?
Yes. How did your research team operate? You want to understand the breadth of their research. You want to ask questions that will uncover whether or not leadership is truly supporting that UX team, or if you're walking into a position where you're just decorating the office with bodies, because a lot of times that's what's going on. So we need to ask questions that get us to what it is we need to find out. And, forget about the nervous part. You're going to be nervous. Congrats on the interview.
Go yes. Keep us posted on that.
Some of the more junior people, they don't feel confident enough, like to do the reverse interview, because they haven't got as many opportunities as a more senior person.
Yeah, then they have to just mature in that area. And that goes back to what Dr. Nick said. Connect with your friends. There's a book. It's called 60 Seconds and You're Hired. I highly recommend that book. They have questions that you can pull out and use in the interviews. You're not used to it. Well, you know what? There was a day you weren't used to driving a car, but you are now. There's a day that you weren't used to doing a lot of things, and you are now. So just go through the process, practice, and get over it, because the faster, the better, and the quicker, the more efficiently you get good at that, the better of an interviewer you're going to be.
Okay, Google this. I missed it. Yerkes Dodson. This is Darren's point. I completely missed it. I'm awful. Yerkes Dodson. It's a psychological principle that basically shows the relationship between anxiety and performance. And basically, all you need to know is that there is an optimal point. Sorry, I can't do it. That's not easy. Optimal point where you need a level of anxiety to perform at your max, your optimal performance. So if you go in too laid back, you're not good enough. If you go in too uptight, you're not good enough. So just learn to live with a little bit of anxiety and get to that optimal level, which focuses and sharpens.
Yes, that reminds me of a story, but I don't have time to tell it. So let's look at the next question, which says, how can I do UX design when the company doesn't allow me to talk directly to users? Nick, no.
That's not UX. Walk away. Next.
That's true. It's not UX without users.
No, it isn't. And I mean, I actually have this problem is if you're on a research gig and you can't have access to users, especially if you're the first person in there and this is a new activity to them, it can trigger regulatory, legal, and all kinds of other things depending upon the nature of the business that you're in. So again, that's another good interview question to ask is what access to users do I have?
Good point. Darren, lightning version?
Yes. When you're limited, of course, it's going to depend upon where you're working and what type of work you are, who the users are, who's being impacted. If you can't do full research, the next best thing is heuristics, which should be the first thing out of your toolbox anyway, because heuristics are best practices, proven principles, common conventions that are already proven, and many of them are already based on research that someone already did. So if you can't do full blown research, use heuristics to help get you through the process. And then go steal away on your own and do guerrilla testing. Nobody has to know about it.
Solomon, I wish you were with us on Twitch or maybe YouTube, because I can't put LinkedIn comments on the screen. But Solomon says, I've also had companies reach out to me only to ask me why they should consider me for the role they reached out to me for. Hey, we'd like to have you, but why should we have you? And Ekening says, I once had a weird experience with asking questions during the interviewing stage. I asked about the UX maturity level of the organization and was told they don't follow trends.
I would change that question.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I'm glad he said that. Don't ask companies about their UX maturity level. It's like writing a survey. If you know that you need certain information, you need to ask questions that give you the data you're looking for, but don't mention what you're looking for specifically. So yes. I need to know what your UX maturity level is. So I need to ask questions that tell me what your UX maturity level is. Because some people, they don't know what you're talking about, or they're afraid, they're embarrassed. And so you're not going to get a good answer. So there are things we know that make up a good UX maturity level. So frame your questions around those things.
Process,
instead,
autonomy.
And you'll still get your answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they basically told him by that answer, we don't follow trends. I'm out. Right.
Next question. Sometimes we aren't able to understand management. Do we have to add on project management skills?
You're going to have to go Darren first, because I'm just going to rant and I shouldn't. So put it like a 30-second
lightning
time.
mini rants, everybody.
I'll lead off for this one. That question, I thought it was like saying two things at once, because you ask about management, then you ask about project management. Well, that's two different things. We always have to manage up. If you think that you're going to do UX work and not manage up, then you're going to get a rude awakening. And depending upon where you work, the severity of that rudeness will vary dramatically. We always have to manage up. Always. Now, project management is good to be aware of some elements associated with project management so that you can help support the person whose responsibility it is to do the project management. For example, if you recognize that there's something that's threatening scope creep, which the project manager or a Scrum manager might be responsible for, then you can speak to that. If we do this, it's going to impact the timeline. So you want to be aware of the concepts, the different things that they're doing, what their mindset is like. Because remember, our customers are on a project are our users too. So the more we know about what it is that they do, the better we can work with them, the better we can optimize how well we're functioning and supporting them. So 2 questions, 2 answers.
Yes, and Ekening says thank you. Nick, mini rant, lightning version?
Yeah, management. When I was younger in my career, I was sent on management training by the company. I had to go on a whole bunch of courses and sit exams and do the whole thing with Dale Carnegie and another one, Quadrant, because it was really important that if you're managing a team of people that you had to have management skills. Management is a skill like research. It isn't just because you're managing doesn't make you a good manager. Just because you're researching doesn't make you a good researcher. It's all of this stuff that goes on. So I would love to see a lot more formal management training and a lot more recognition of that in the modern world, because we seem to have lost it somewhere. I don't know if it's just digital or in the wider world, but management is no longer a thing, like the art of the skill, the science of management. So that's one. But on the project management, I think Agile and that whole delivery has got the same identity problem that we have in UX, in that you can talk to 10 Agile or Scrum managers and get 10 different interpretations. Right. Same with UX. And that's a major problem for staffing and for everything, basically. So that's my mini rant, basically.
Okay, thank you for the lightning version of the mini rant. Next question comes from Emmy over on Twitch, and it says, what are your opinions on folks transitioning from an academic research background like psychology, biology, those sorts of fields? How does that skill set compare to an applied user research skill set? Any pitfalls?
I'm busting for the bathroom, so I'm going to have to answer this quickly and I'll run and come back. I'm sorry, Darren. Just going to jump in. This is my specialist area. Look at UX psychology on YouTube. Look at the introduction to UX psychology. A lot of the bigger, wider answers are all issued in that video. I made it, obviously, so I think it's a great video, but it is a great video. It'll address all of it. Psychology is the UX I see is the science of digital, and so psychologists are the science of digital within that. We need more science. So if you have a psychology underpinning or anything that's any kind of science literacy, it's going to pay you dividends in the user research space. Not, unfortunately, today there isn't enough recognition of that. However, as market research is shown to be inappropriate for the experience work that we do, clueful, experienced, scientifically led user research who strive for valid insight are going to become much more valuable, and we should see some separation in the marketplace. That said, if you don't have a psychology degree or some kind of formal qualification, that's okay. I mentored a guy when I was in an agency, a lovely guy. He went to an agency with a PhD who was running the lab. Can't remember the guy's name. It was a fluent interaction. Spent 5 years there, stuck it out through thick and thin. Is a fantastic user researcher now, is confident, competent, all of that. So if you can get the right tutelage, the right mentorship, and regular access to people, anybody can succeed. It's not an elitist thing.
Okay, Nick, bathroom break. Don't forget to mute. Don't forget to mute if your bathroom is close by. Darren, mini rant.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that Dr. Nick said. I also think that I've met people. I remember one person, the greatest example that I've seen is I'm going to give two contrary examples to buy some time for him in the restroom there also, is that a person who was an anthropologist, or he went to school, studied sociology, and came into UX and went into research and did a phenomenal job. And they were in sociology, got exposed to UX, and identified that they had a genuine interest in the UX work. That's one of the things that people don't do. They get involved, but they don't really evaluate to see how well they align with the work that's going to come forward. When you do, that is going to lend itself to your UX work in ways that someone else that doesn't have that background will be able to do. So by all means, a person can transition in. I have, however, also met people who were, I knew a person who had a PhD in psychology, and the person came to work and would perform psychological experiments on staff members. So it's really ridiculous stuff that we don't have time for the stories. But I remember telling somebody, isn't it her PhD in psychology? And they say, yeah. I said, well, why is she gaslighting everybody? She knows what gaslighting is. Yeah, that's it. She's a jerk, and that's what I'm getting to. You've got people who have, no matter what your background is, if you're a jerk, you're not qualified. Nasty people make bad UX professionals. Period. Yeah. And there's a lot of people today
in action heroes.
Yes, a lot of nasty people have come into UX, and the signs show. And it's really, really, really terrible. So, and I like what I'm just going to touch on the first thing.
Yeah, the next question is definitely very Darren-y. So Dr. Nick is back. So the next question is from a friend of the show, VJ, who says, EQ, what would be your take on how to enable researchers to be able to be in the right emotion? Darren, you're Mr. EQ. Go for it.
Well, first, you got to be honest with yourself. You need to be honest with who you are. That's the first part of EQ, self-awareness. All the experts agree with that. You need to understand who you are, and don't be a dweeb. I mean, and so you're going. And when you recognize who you are, you recognize where your buttons are. When people are pushing them, you recognize how that there's a difference in being, how can I say, frank and tactful, overly frank and tactful. You can be tactful, Like a lot of people, we talked about social media earlier. People read what you say and they think that me and Debbie get it more, I think, than Dr. Nick, although I think Dr. Nick gets this sometime too. And they'll say, oh, you guys are too harsh. But they read what we said and then they ascribe a tone. If you heard us say it, I've said things on this show before that I have posted to LinkedIn, and I guarantee you that the tone that I said it in and the tone that they perceive I wrote it in were completely different. So we're not the jerks. I mean, somebody said the other day, they said that me and Debbie are two of the nicest people that she's ever met. Somebody said this on LinkedIn the other day. How in the world can we be the nicest people that somebody ever met? And then people are like blocking us and running from us and things like that.
The worst bitches out there.
and I told somebody once, somebody said something to me on LinkedIn. I said, if you don't understand what I'm saying, you ascribed a tone that I'm not speaking in. So unless you know, and I write, some of you can confirm this, I write the exactly same way I talk. Been doing it for a very long time. And if you're used to listening to me talk, then you can, when I'm writing, you can act, it's almost like you can hear me talking when I'm writing. I've been working on that for years, doing that. So when you got to keep your head on straight, because that attitude that you have is critical, because managing relationships is one of the byproducts of EQ. And that's one of the things that helps you to succeed as a UX professional. If you're paranoid, that's not going to work. The woman that told me, I said this on the show before, Darren is hard to work with. And we never worked on anything before. How in the world am I hard to work with and we never worked on anything before? And
she has a fantasy about you, and her fantasy is you're hard to work with.
And she had a dream, and then she came to work and told her dream. And next thing you know, I'm in the crazy PhD team lead's office, being talked to about something that didn't happen. But she's not being held accountable for her paranoia.
I'm going to flip over to Nick. We have a half hour left and a pile of questions. Nick.
I'll be quick. Some people, it's not the tone, Darren. It's not that they're reading it in an angry voice. The content is not matching with their either expectations or something that they can easily achieve or do.
Biases.
And it causes that disequilibrium kicks off, right? And that's what you see. It causes the emotion or it's not comfortable. It's just not that some people in the modern world are just not comfortable with uncomfortable feelings, if you know what I mean. They can't live with something that's a bit negative or a bit not ideal.
We're blowing up their anchoring bias.
No, totally. What we're seeing is lots of people who have become very senior in something that they don't really understand and very, very self-defensive because this phenomenon is happening. They're very uncomfortable and they're on the back foot, putting up a very, very clean facade and marketing themselves particularly well, but it doesn't match the behavior. And that's a tough way to live. The one thing I just want to leave on was, if you believe in something, so I believe in science, I believe in the method, that brings self-belief, and that in itself will bring the confidence for you to stick to your guns. So whether all this negativity is coming in, you can keep moving forwards.
Yes.
You've got to have thick skin in this trade, but you've got to also keep moving forwards. And if you listen to too much of this negative stuff and naysayers, we're just really interconnected and you're hearing a lot more noise. It's just that.
All right, thanks. I'm going to jump to the next question, which came from someone on YouTube. Not sure how to pronounce Luna Edea 7. Hello, all. I was just hired as a UX designer at a startup. They hired me and two of my fellow bootcamp grads as their small team. We are very, very junior. How can I and the team level up without seniors? I've got an answer, but I'll let the gentleman start. Darren is open-mouthed and blinking slowly like a bobcat. Darren, do you have an answer, or should I take this one?
I'll start it out. Seatbelts for the severity of the statement that is to follow. The first question that I'm remembering from that is, how do we level up? Well, first, congrats. You landed something, so we'll start with that. 3 of you all graduated from a boot camp. Condolences on that. And then the third thing, because it's going to be tough, because the fact that they didn't hire anybody, they could have hired 2 of you and at least a mid-level person, because you folks need somebody who can relate to you, because UX people, our brains our neurons are like rearranged in different places. We think differently than other people. So to not give you guys somebody, you guys have nobody. You have to listen to Debbie's show every day to maintain your sanity, because they didn't
You're welcome.
Because they seriously, because they didn't, we all go through this, by the way. That's why one of the reasons we started the UX Chit Chat Hour was for that same reason. We need to talk to other people like us, because it helps you to regain sanity. It helps you to energize, because people who don't think like UX folks will zap you of your energy in a heartbeat. They did you wrong by not bringing in at least a mid-level person. So how can you level up? You can't. Not within the company. It has to be done externally. It has to be done outside. You have to tap into people, the meetup, and UX meetups are dangerous now, because people, they say any and everything and nobody's policing them, so to speak. I hate to use that word, but some of them need to be arrested, because some of the things they're doing, they're committing cognitive crimes out here.
No,
and
it's fraud. You're right.
Yeah.
It's sad. I heard somebody go, yeah, you guys, you should just go to the boot camp over there. And I said, wait a minute. So we're in a meetup, and I went to LinkedIn and I looked at the person's profile. The person's been doing UX for 7 years and told somebody that. I understand some people telling people to go to boot camps when they have no experience, because it's just what they think. But if you've been around for 7 years and you still don't know the dangers of a boot camp, you're a detriment to this discipline. I'm saying that as not only as a professional, but as an educator, because I'm making sure to pump that up a bit more too. When I talk about education, I'm rooted and grounded in that stuff, and the pedagogy and the goals and the lack of integrity in boot camps should scare people away, flat out. Yes, Darren, cognitive crimes.
Darren, we get.
I have an actual actionable answer for the person who asked the question. Nick, do you have an answer for this person's question?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, remind me of that, Darren. I don't want to. Anyway. Yes. Okay. It's everything Darren said is I would agree with. There are things that you can do, but understand it's at risk, and you really should have all the things that Darren has just said. Stick to the process. Presumably on your boot camp, they taught you some kind of a UX process. Stick to the process. That, like I just said previously, the process, if you have confident belief in the process and you follow it through, you will iteratively get yourself user needs to inform your design, and that's UX. If you keep doing that, there's validation built into what we do, because by user testing and doing discovery and doing them at the right bits and developing and testing and doing all of that, you will produce something that meets the needs of the users, and that's doing good UX. So you might look at this as a golden opportunity, as a blank slate to do UX the right way, rather than being stuck in a team doing it the wrong way. And that's often a big problem with some juniors. They get stuck on teams being told to do things the way, just wireframe something for me, that stuff. Hope that answers your question.
Here's my answer for this. This is what I tell everybody who asks me this question, because I get this one a lot. And that is, you need to find mentors and coaches who are outside of your company. If the company is not going to give you seniors or people senior to you who are specifically allocated for a certain amount of time each week to reviewing your work, answering your questions, helping you with your presentations, making sure your work is good, making sure it's grounded in good process, it's got science and technique. I'm going to have to overlay on Darren here. Science and technique. Exactly. Get mentors and coaches outside of work. You just have to invest in that, because it's an investment in yourself. As a personal plug, I would say have the three of you chip in and hire me as your coach. I charge $50 American for a half hour. That's, 15 or so bucks a head, and let me review your work and let me watch what you're doing and help you with your plans and look at what you're doing and make sure that you guys are doing decent work and help you deal with probably the bullshit and challenges you have at a job, who might not understand what y'all even do, and how to get through all that. So on the self-promotion side, please hire me to coach you. And on the not self-promotion side, please have somebody coach you. That's what I would say there.
That's the long version of what I was getting at. Yes.
And
that's it. You gotta get somebody outside. That's what you gotta get somebody outside. That's what I meant.
Yep. Thank you. Let's see. We've got all kinds of boot camp comments coming up now. Let's quickly put one up. The person who asked the question said, "That's amazing. Thank you all so much. Debbie, I'm going to suggest this to my team. Thank you." Yep, I always do first call free, so you can decide if you want to work with me or not. Emmy says, "I recently got an email from a boot camp with a pie chart of previous occupations of people who enrolled in their course. It had no other category and added up to 100%. This marketing is sus." Sus, that's so Australian. Emmy, are you Australian? All right, back to questions. Okay,
they
so
are
our
such
next
liars.
Our next question is, I'm working on new slides about that. Next question. Hi, Debbie. Hope you're well. I hope you're well, Anurag. Question, how do you make sure that extraneous or low priority use cases don't muddle the core features of the product, and how do you communicate this to clients? We'll let our thinkers think. I can play some action. While our thinkers think, hey everybody, don't forget to follow us on Twitch. Twitch is much cooler than YouTube and exponentially cooler than LinkedIn. You can also join our Slack channel, which now has almost 500 people. And of course, there's the tip jar, which goes to the cake fund. And if you're on YouTube, empathize with the like button. So there, I've covered all of those bases. Now I'll get back to the question. All right, question. Who wants to jump on this one first?
I don't mind. I mean, I'll be quick, because I think if there's a product manager around, that's very much a product manager roadmap-y type question in terms of the priority. Yeah. What are we going to develop next? But I can totally see that us UXs used to be product managers before product managers existed. So in a smaller organization or a startup, I can totally see you playing that role. It's all about user needs, and the money you're going to make from those needs. Because in a small startup or a SME, that's a really major consideration, is keeping the lights on. In which case you have to balance them. But there's a whole bunch. This is all found in product manager literature. There's tons of this stuff. I don't consider it a specialist subject. I don't want to talk any more about it because I don't know what I'm talking about. But that's directing you in the right direction.
One of the things that comes to mind for me is I think about how we're prioritizing things like in an agile sprint. And if use cases are coming up, they're being presented, then the team is going to prioritize. So I'm going to let the team do the prioritizing, and then I'm going to address it accordingly. So that's my answer on that one. I think the team it's not UX's job to prioritize. There are some things that we are tasked to prioritize, but not all. So if it's that and there's a bunch of use cases, let the team make that determination. I couldn't see that last one that just left the screen.
Sorry, that was our good friend Wilson over in Twitch, and he said, I was a boot camp grad myself, and my career coach deterred us away from applying to internships to get real work experience because they believed we're more than ready to work as a UX designer after 3 months of education. LOL.
And the funny thing is about that, they know you're not ready. That's a Jedi mind trick. These are not the jobs you're looking for.
By the way, very quickly, I'm working on a video about this one, but someone I won't name, but who may have posted today here in the audience, sent me a copy of Thinkful. It's a boot camp. Thinkful's policy on getting your money back if you haven't found a job after 180 days. And I'm shooting a perspectives video on it because I want people to see the amazing fine print in there, because it's probably not just Thinkful. It's probably similar for many of them, so I'm not just picking on them. And the amazing thing, one of the many amazing things that were in the fine print were, if you try to become a freelancer after graduation, the job guarantee is nullified. and they will not give you your money back if you don't get a full-time job within 6 months if you put yourself out there as a freelancer. But yet graduates of boot camps, not necessarily Thinkful, have told me
Yep.
that the school told them, once you graduate,
Yep.
go out there and try to be a freelancer so that you can get some work experience. So I'm very curious if those schools have in their fine print, yeah, go out there and be a freelancer, but oh, by the way, this will nullify your money back guarantee.
So unethical. And Thinkful is the
How?
one. Yeah, pick on them. Please pick on them, because they're the main ones in that group that says that, hey, come and join our boot camp. We'll even pay you while you're taking your classes. We'll just take the money back from you after you get your job. That's a joke.
Everybody read the fine print.
Avoid any resource that's dangling a carrot. Anybody who's making false promises, avoid. Thinkful, all of them. You know what they're thinking about? They're thinking about how much they're going to rip you off. That's what they're full of thinking about.
Can I put up the next question?
It's really terrible.
Nick, anything to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, I could go all night, but I won't.
Okay.
I mean, go on.
We'll reschedule the. You know, my favorite musician for New Year's did a 24-hour live stream, which ended up being 21 hours. But you know, if you want to do the 21-hour version, guys, you let me know. Hopefully, people will donate some money, and I'll send you guys some. So, friend of the show, Dimitris, who was actually yesterday's guest, thank you again. Episode 100. Dimitris asks, in some cases, people will do research, whether we want it or not. For example, a product owner talking with stakeholders. How do we help them do these sessions more effectively if we don't have enough UX researchers? So, Nick, it sounds like a cousin of what we talked about earlier about some of the democratization. But if you're really stuck, what do we do?
Yeah, I considered this on a not too recent project in I think the past 12 months. Or no, previous that it would have been pre-pandemic. The idea is we've got a big task at hand. We've only got a limited research team, but we need to do this stuff. What do we do? You know, we cannot put it out to an agency or anything else. Can we turn people into researchers to a level? And it's a really good question. And I didn't actually go ahead with it, so I can't give you the benefit of experience. I can just tell you the thinking that goes on, because I think you can. There's levels, obviously, as you know. There's data collection at the most basic level, and as long as you're doing some simple basic data, like for example, the people you see on the sidewalks with a clipboard are not expert, market researchers from the Ministry of Market Research or whatever, the certificated stuff. They're just collecting data. And so I think we can get people to collect data around the building or around, in the field, doing whatever you need to. That's not necessarily surveys, by the way. When I'm saying collecting data, that could be observational stuff. But again, it needs to come with a very clearly defined set of working parameters, so that not everybody is being completely subjective. And that's the whole point about research and research skills. So you've got to be very careful in how you design something like that. But if it's simple, basic data collection, you can do it in a really objective way. I'd try it out, see if you can do it.
Darren, something to add?
That question. Yeah, that question brings to mind to me, and I love that response. I mean, it is, people don't realize how specialized the different aspects of UX are, the different disciplines or sub-disciplines under it, and research is being exploited almost as much as some of the UI stuff that's going on out there, because they think that anybody can do it. And I have seen people try to do research, and I've been there to watch them sort of stick their foot in their mouth. Because the hardest thing for people, if they're engaging with participants, the hardest thing that they've had time doing, the toughest thing, is asking a question and shutting up. They ask the question, and depending upon how the person starts to respond, they always want to help them. They always want to guide them. They always want to start suggesting answers and things like that. And that's the difference between the person who's skilled at it, who understands the science of doing that type of research, and the people who are dabblers. And so, yeah, people can gather research, and they can't even write that script. If they write the questions, it's going to be a disaster. And the thing is, and why this is so important, is data. Data can be compromised. Data can be corrupted. And a lot of times it's because the input, the venue of the input, the question that was asked, the thing you're asking somebody to do is not structured properly, or somebody does something in the process of querying the participants. So it's a really tough thing to do. If you did include other people, it should be written by the professionals. I've been in cases where we just farmed it out. If we had a big challenge and we didn't have enough people, we would always bring in other research partners. We would contract out some other partners to come in and do it. It was never, we never trusted research in the hands of a non-professional ever.
Yeah,
Now,
I would document the risks. Here's the document here's the list of risks that our project and our company face if we give specialized work to non-specialized people who are going to stab at it, versus if we bring in an agency or freelancer to just help us out here a bit. Nick, you had something to add?
Yeah, actually, many times the agency brought in, I've seen some of the worst research work come from agencies. Sorry to say that, guys. That's just the truth. The bigger the organization seems to be the biggest rip-off. They're ripping off some of these blue chip companies to the tune of lots of money with really, really shocking research practices. What I wanted to say was, any researcher, this is a curse and a blessing. We spend hours watching back our video. Hours. It's murder. It's part of the job. When you've watched and listened to yourself 1,000 times, trust me, once you've had a mentor to show you where you're going wrong, it's actually really hard watching it initially, especially for the first session where you might be a bit rusty and you're making all these horrible errors. Like, ooh, maybe I'll rule that one out and start again. Seriously, if you spent 3 or 6 months without researching, and in my mid-career that totally happened, your first couple of sessions are really rusty. You are rusty. It's a skill you need to keep sharp all the time. And I say this all the time. I know Darren and Debbie totally agree with this. I'm so far from being an expert, and I will never be an expert. This stuff is so hard that you're constantly learning. You'll learn till the day you die or retire, because there's so many factors. There's so much to keep an eye on. You can't get comfortable. The minute you get comfortable, you're going to drop the ball, and you're going to drop the ball anyway. So you've got to keep juggling. So you just get comfortable with that sense of flux and that mayhem kind of thing, and you get good at it. And that's just with time and practice and experience. And
I'm going to have to put everybody into lightning mode. We have 4 more questions and 8 minutes. So I get the feeling we'll run a little bit late, but I don't want to keep you guys from real paying work. Someone wrote, "Hi, love you all. Just want to share the love." That was an anonymous thing that came through. We also got this question coming through, and it says, it's from Grace, and Grace says, "Hi guys, what are your insights on keeping psychology and human behavior at the forefront of guiding all design decisions? I'm a beginning designer who wants to design with complete intention, but I find that I struggle to have these principles clearly guide me from beginning to end." That sounds like it could be its own podcast. Do we have a short version for Grace?
Yes.
Go with Darren first
on this one. My lightning round answer is that it will come naturally. You continue to learn. I love what Dr. Nick just said, because this is, when you opt into this, there's a new name. When you opt into UX, it is lifelong learning. You never arrive. You're always growing. So you just continue to learn. The more you learn, you go from, I love the whole system 1 to system 2 and the thinking fast and slow book. The more you learn about psychological elements as they pertain to design, you will apply it to your work. And so you just keep learning it, you keep understanding the concept, and you start to understand its practical application. And then you will continue to do it. Don't try to force it, or you will make shipwreck. And ignore books like the laws of UX. Anything that says the laws of anything, just throw it in the trash. We don't have any laws. We have principles that we abide by. We don't have any laws. So because if you bring a law, then you think that you've always got to do, because our minds think like that. You want to always make sure it's in front of you. That's not system 2 thinking. It's system 1. Isn't that a great book? System 1 thinking is looking at the guidelines. So you want it to become second nature. That's when it's system 2. So keep going forward, keep learning, see how it applies. It'll automatically come natural. You don't have to force it at all.
Nick?
Remind me of the question. This is psychology. Yeah, sorry. your question is really about your role. If you're a designer, if you're a visually led designer, the psychology bits that are probably most relevant to you are the on-page designy stuff, rather than the researchy scientific principles bit, which Darren, I, and Debbie probably, as research people, do a lot more of and is more relevant, the behavioral stuff. Look at Susan Weinschenk. Everyone should read Susan Weinschenk. Also, Luke Wroblewski. I can't pronounce Luke W. The infamous Luke W. His book, the legendary book, Web Forms, I think it's called, Web Form Design. Buy that book. There's a ton of good psychology in there with eye tracking and some very interesting stuff with form design. And I know it doesn't matter if you're a full spectrum, like a full stack designer or a dedicated visual interaction designer type person. We all do forms regularly, and that's a great place to start.
Yes.
Okay, next question, because we're running out of the time. Emmy says, we need a Darren quote list. And Wilson says, Darren's motivational posters. So
I'm posting them.
Line of merchandise for you. Question says, hi, I've been at my company about 8 months. We get customer feedback via surveys and other sources, but I've yet to do any moderated sessions or even talk to any customers. I don't know if I'm over worrying, but the fact that I've been able to easily talk to customers worries me. I miss doing interviews and having those meaty conversations. I've been trying to set this up, but the planning and approval process has really demotivated me, especially when I have so many other responsibilities to tackle as a UX designer. There's a question in there. Who wants to jump on that?
Yeah, right. In that, you have to talk to users. I would try and do it anyway. Now, I don't know which area you're working in. I don't want to know if there's NDA stuff involved, but do everything you can. If that means using friends and family to begin with, just go ahead and do it anyway.
Yes.
You have to. I know it's going to be biased data, but it's better than nothing. Again, I'm just going to say all the cliches that the other two would say anyway, and this is absolutely 100% true. It's not a it's a good cliche. What people say and what they do are usually worlds apart. If you're flying on sensors, like I was talking about earlier, and you don't look out the windows, you're going to hit something. It does never ends well. So we've all been in the situation you're in. Don't worry, this is completely common. It's ubiquitous across the world, as far as I'm aware. You have to get access to users. So go ahead and either set up your own sessions, moderate your own sessions, do it remotely, which is now, thanks to the pandemic, de facto.
Yes.
And start to synthesize the insights that you've got from your friends and family against the survey data, and start to show if there's a delta, if there's a difference, see what's going on there. And then you can generate a whole bunch of hypotheses from there as to where you really want to do your work. You can then take that and any video evidence in a short show reel to say, we need to have a serious discussion about access to our customers.
Yep, great. Should I go to the next one? Darren, something to add?
I was just going to say that talk makes me think about the proactivity from earlier. Do it on your own. If they don't let you do it on your own, your way. But you have some data. Yep.
All right. 2 more questions, and so we'll run a little bit late today, but thanks to everybody for staying. And of course, love to see how many people are on Twitch. Keep moving over, everybody. I think Twitch is a much better place. I resonate with, this is from Jonathan, from who was UX South Africa and is now moved to, I think, Ireland. Jonathan says, yeah, you know him. Jonathan says, I resonate with what you have to say about how we need to manage up in our day-to-day work, Darren. I'd like to learn about UX strategy, specifically within the context of a large multidisciplinary team within an enterprise. I'm still a small fish in a big pond, but it's something I'd like to dip my toes into. I keep ISO 9241-210 in mind when planning my approach, but are there any other resources that you would recommend setting time aside for? Any noob traps that people fall into?
Oh, wow. Man, you make me think about the talk that I did for those folks in South Africa. We did the UX strategy masterclass. And I think that take on strategy is a little bit different than what some people take. Most notably, it is an entrepreneurial, it includes an entrepreneurial aspect of it. And I think that that's key, especially when you're in a newbie type of environment. And when I was at Bosch, I was the guy. And I actually, they said that I ended up having the best run UX division in the entire company, 385,000 employees, but we had a small segment of that. And so I had to like run it as a small business, the whole UX operation. So it's about finding out what's going on in that department, finding out where they are. The UX maturity has to become a part of that, because you need to say, how mature are we now? What can we do to grow it? What types of resources are available? Who are my executive champions? I mean, there's more that we can say in a lightning round here. So yeah, that's probably a topic for another time, but those are a few of the building blocks that help to establish that strategy, because it's not just about the work. It's about managing the whole operation of UX.
Nick, something to add?
Thank you for mentioning ISO 9241. It's an HCI thing and it makes me really happy. But it's really dry and not very, I mean, that's the first time I've heard it in years in the commercial world. So be aware of that, you know. The new traps that people fall into is overthinking all of this. And that's the simple lightning round answer is what we do is a simple thing. It's just nuanced and complicated to get right and experienced, but the actual process of doing it isn't. And all these boot camps and all the noise you're hearing are people trying to commercialize something they don't know, and it's just distracting you from the simple thing of using needs into solution. That's all it is. It's really clean. It's just doing that bit, it gets complicated, but strive for that. All the good stuff follows.
Yeah, and we have a quick question. Can you please repeat the books and authors Dr. Nick said to look into? I think that was Susan Weinschenk, Weinschenk, I think it is. And Luke, yes. Luke's last name starts with a W, but it's kind of
Robleski.
a long... Robleski, something like that?
Wrobleski.
Something like that. He goes by Luke W.
Rosenfeld Books. It's a common UX publisher.
Oh, Rosenfeld Media published it?
That's the one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
yep.
so yeah, that's
Wrobleski.
All right, and our last question is from Shannon, who unfortunately just left, but we still will answer it anyway. And Jonathan is saying, solid, thanks for sharing your knowledge, it's invaluable. And we got thanked for the books. Shannon's question was, how do we stay positive for the juniors?
How do we stay positive for the juniors? Basically, keep pressing forward. Keep pressing forward. Don't try to move too fast. Be patient. For some reason, a lot of juniors come in, and I actually wrote a Medium post about this recently, that some people, they get involved in trying to get new jobs and trying to grow, and they forget this is skilled labor, if you will. UX is, and a lot of them are younger, and they're getting into this new arena, but they're approaching it the same way they did when they were working at the fast food joint. And you're not going to go from lettuce to fries that fast, if I can borrow that line from Coming to America. Today I'm on lettuce, tomorrow I'm going to be on fries. No, we're not going to do that. And you can't interview at 3:00 and be hired by 6 and then be on the lettuce at 8. This is a completely different arena. So I can't encourage people enough to be patient, continue to grow, stay the course. You are in a world that in the Midwest, even still to this day, the starting salary is in the mid-70s. The starting salary at McDonald's is something like, if you branch it out to a year, is somewhere in the vicinity of $25,000. So they're going to look at you differently. How you approach it is differently, and we need to be patient, grow. And please have some respect for the seniors, especially people like us who are trying to help folks grow, instead of jumping out from behind the bushes and trying to slit our throats. Because cognitively, that's the equivalent of what's happening out here, and it needs to stop. I've got a blog post on hold about that. That needs to stop.
Yeah, especially since they also hope to learn. They hope to learn from us for free, and they also hate us.
And they want to learn from us, and they want to kick us off the side of the ship. Get out of here with that.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. It's like Homie the Clown sweeping them off the stage.
Yeah,
Dr. Nick, how do we stay positive for the juniors?
you know what? I'm going to, again, it isn't always positive, and don't expect to always be positive. I know that might sound a bit
Yes.
harsh, but it's a journey. It's an apprenticeship. It really is. And on that apprenticeship, you're going to make mistakes and fail, and that's okay. As long as you do it in a structured learning environment. You've got someone to help you out of that one, so that it's not a failure, it's learning. It's not a mistake, it's learning. So I think everybody wants this rosy yellow brick road all the way to lead, and it's a mess, right? And remember, I came into this game with a PhD and a whole bunch of psychology, and I started as junior, an absolute junior. So you're gonna. I made some horrific mistakes. I'll show you my not portfolio. There's some of the stuff that didn't make my portfolio is horrific. IAs and navigations that were just horrible. But the point is they're amazing learning experiences. And so just get comfortable. So just saying having a thick skin is enough, because you're a human being with emotions and feelings. But as I said earlier, spinning plates and that flux, that chaos, you learn to be a bit like Neo in the Matrix, where he's holding his hand up against the bullets and it's all okay, because you're calm in this craziness. You're good with it. You're just living in it. And that's what I would hope to get any mentee into, that mindset of it's okay. I know it's unknown going ahead, but I've got confidence in the methods to get us the results to see us through. And you do that a few times, it just gets easier and easier, and with usual challenges.
Yeah, and my quick answer would be, I guess I don't feel a lot of pressure to be positive for the juniors. I feel like I do more for the juniors if I give them some honesty and reality. And if that scares them away from the profession, then they're meant to be somewhere else. And if that scares them away from me, then they're not going to listen to me. And I think that the tough love is important. It's important not to put people down or to be harsh as some sort of power play, but it's important to give people the realities that our work is full of conflicts and disagreements, and it's often very thankless. And if you're looking for validation, this is not the right place. If you're looking to be put on everybody's shoulders like the end of some sports movie and carried off, and that's not going to. If they do that, they're going to chuck you in the ocean. These things don't happen. And I just want I want juniors to know the reality of it, because it doesn't make sense to cover it in whipped cream and sprinkles and say, "Oh, juniors, we want it to be so positive for you and everything's going to be okay and you're going to get that job." And I think it's more important to say, hey, this is complex, difficult work that is often totally thankless and unappreciated and full of conflict, and come into it if it's running through your blood. And if it's not running through your blood, it's really okay to work somewhere else. I mean, I don't know about the two of you, but I had spent my entire life planning to be a genetic researcher, and almost after I was almost done with pre-med at university when I decided that wasn't the direction I was going to go in. And I decided, well, now what the hell am I going to do? And I dumped that, and I finished my major in music, which I'm very proud of. And after that, I didn't know what I was going to do, and I applied to graduate schools for music. They all rejected me. And you could say, wow, where's my school who's going to let me in? Where's my whatever? I'm so glad all these things happened. I'm glad I didn't continue with science. I'm glad I didn't end up in music grad school. I wouldn't be here now where I know I'm meant to be. So I just tell people, if something about UX is unpleasant or scary, or you're looking for more validation, or you want more cheers, or you think we're some sort of cult and we're creepy and whatever, please, please, please feel free to work somewhere else. And I'm not going to be ultra positive for you. I'm going to be ultra realistic. I think that's why I'm here. The ultra positive people have 21,000 subscribers that they bought, and I'm going to be very happy with my 1,600 real subscribers.
I wanted to piggyback something I forgot. Number one, I just wrote an article that was published about 2 weeks ago on Medium called "Beware of Toxic Positivity." So be aware of how dangerous being positive really is. And I have a post that's scheduled, because I schedule most of my posts anyway that come up on LinkedIn, on social media. And I have one scheduled for later today that when you think about parents who raise their kids and they go to school, get good grades, and they never give the child, they never really expose the child to the realities of life to teach them how to live, it's really negligent. And so the same thing, and so the post talks about how if all we do is tell people about the methods, the methodologies, and the artifacts and the deliverables and the techniques, but we don't tell up and coming UX professionals, we don't give them the wherewithal to navigate the UX professional landscape, we are just as negligent as those parents who don't really parent. The schools and educational source, they're not parents. You got to parent them. And I know some people don't like it, but it's almost like we've got like a parent relationship going on with folks when we're trying to help people grow. We're looking out for you. We're looking out for you the right way. Nobody's trying to hurt your feelings. We're trying to keep you from getting smashed. Because if you think that we're hurting your feelings by telling you the truth, wait till you get in a room with a stakeholder who doesn't care about you at all. They will smash you.
Or the user.
You will be running from UX if you come across the wrong person. So I tell my students all the time, I'd rather have you know the truth now and be able to navigate it than have it blindside you. And then you want to come to me crying. No, we're not going to have that. I'm going to let you know I respect you too much to not tell you what the truth is.
Nick, anything to add as we wind down here?
If you haven't lost the room in like a senior leadership team in a facilitation session, like in a workshop, and been savaged for it, you haven't earned your UX spurs yet, if you know what I mean. You know, I mean, there's kind of everyone has that one experience, and you'll never repeat it, and it's a good learning experience. You know, the other thing I wanted to say, there's a lot of physicality around this positivity we're talking about. Travel, field work, it takes the hell out of you. Getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning for wheels up at 7 o'clock. And then 2 8-hour days in the lab back to back, and then analysis, or watching transcription, transcribing videos, watching them back, analysis. This is all deeply physical, hard concentration. It knocks the hell out of you. I don't care how old you are. I mean, you spend 8 hours in the lab, you will sleep like a baby that night from like the minute you get in. It's hard going. So yeah, I don't want to make it like we're all macho hard people. It's not like that. It ain't all just like asking surveys now and then to a few people. You know?
So true. It is way past our bedtime. I do have an actual UX interview to do or I guess it's really it's a research study. I have someone who claims to show up. Hopefully, I have over a 50% no-show on the project I'm working on right now. It is so strange. So supposedly someone is coming in 20 minutes. So I'm going to have to run. But let's do the usual sign-offs. Darren, where can people find and follow you? I know it's a long list.
All right. The World of UX podcast, episode number 41 came out today, where I interviewed someone who helps run the experience architecture undergrad program at Michigan State University. That's like a 40-minute episode, which we never do that on the podcast unless I'm interviewing somebody. I got to interview both of these two folks one day on the podcast too. But so I'm there. The UX Chit Chat Hour. We're in our 3rd month, and that will be this Thursday at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Just connect and grab a table and talk to UX professionals from around the world about what, Darren? Doesn't matter. Let's just talk, and we'll see where it goes. And people are loving it already, so we're having a ball with that. The UX Uncensored channel, we're still holding off on production, but that's coming very, very soon. Man, I'm all over the place. I do have some talks coming up. Catch me on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. I always post things about my upcoming talks. I'm doing one for students of UX real soon. I'm doing another one for the folks in South Africa. I just post the stuff because it's all over the place. I'm doing one for UXPA California. And don't forget about the upcoming Concentric conference,
which is not open for registration, but block your calendars for May 25, 26, 27. I'll be announcing a conference hopefully in a few weeks. It will be free, but start blocking off your calendars for May 25, 26, 27. Dr. Nick, how can we find and follow you and stalk you to the ends of the earth?
I can be found on LinkedIn. That's the place to find me. Please don't type me epic long PMs because I just don't have the time to read and respond to all of them. I really don't. So I'm really sorry about that. That's just the truth. But please do get hold of me if you need to. Just don't write an essay. Where can I be found? So yeah, LinkedIn is where I basically live. do check out on YouTube. I've got a bunch of videos, conference videos for Tech Circus that are on there, but also my own video, the Introduction to UX Psychology, which if any of this is interesting, you should definitely watch it. It's 25 minutes mandatory viewing. One other thing I wanted to mention, the Behavior and Design Conference. I'm co-hosting this year with Luke, the owner and runner of it. Really looking forward to that. The Behavior and Design Conference is, I think, pretty unique in the world. It's a very high quality, psychologically driven UX conference, all about behavior and design. So if this sort of stuff is of interest to you, definitely get signed up. I think early birds or tickets are on sale right now. That's it from me and my plugs. Thanks very much.
I think Early Bird might have just sold out, but everybody should check it out anyway. Behavior and Design Conference, I think that's part of Tech Circus.
Yep, that's correct.
Yep. So everybody, that's Googleable. All right, then thanks for everybody for joining. Thanks, of course, endlessly to Darren and Nick for joining us and making this funny and wacky and hard-hitting, as some people said, and necessarily honest and all of that. So we've no plans to have you guys back yet, but we'll private message and come up with a triumphant return and figure it out. People want this to happen weekly. I think that might be a bit much, but I'll talk to you about getting you on the calendar. So thanks everybody for joining, and I'm going to play us out of here, but I will be here tomorrow live on the show doing some slides from my new HR training. I will be doing the comedy and tragedy worst UX job descriptions I have found. BAT required, yes. And then I'll also be doing, as part of that, from my upcoming HR training, my 7 rules for a CX or UX job. So tomorrow, come laugh and cry at the worst UX job descriptions I found, and then please cheer on what I believe will be the 7 rules to create a good job we actually want to stay in. So thanks, everybody. I'm going to play us out of here. Be well. See you soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Delta CX, available for CX and UX consulting, projects, and training. Contact us for a free consultation.